Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon, Gibson Brands.
Well. All right, Jared Brandon, Gibson Brands. Welcome to the show for the first time, Jared Brandon from Gibson Brands. Who else do we have here?
Rob Chafe, Mad Cow Amplification.
Chafe.
Right on. And you got me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are thrilled to death that you are listening to our show as per usual. Ooh, man, we got a good one tonight.
Oh, my.
We got a full house, too. Five people. Yes, it's fantastic. Who is the fifth person?
Who are you?
Oh, is that me? That's me. Charles Henry here, Silktone Amplifiers.
Right on. Charles Henry. Silktone Amplifiers, a relatively new brand on the market. So we're going to talk to him about this cool new amp that he has got cooking and find out all about where and why and how and what's ahead and all that kind of good stuff. We've got, for those who might be listening for the first time, we get new listeners hopefully all of the time.
Yeah.
We hear
I'm
from
told.
many of them. So, Tony, what do we do on the show?
Well, Todd, we like to talk about gear. Mm-hmm. Specifically, we like to talk about boutique gear, and that's things like guitars and amps and pedals and accessories and all the good stuff.
Right.
That's
We
right.
like to talk to the makers and the movers and the shakers. And
Exactament.
I think, people like to hear the backstories.
They
and
do.
see,
That's
right.
and see what's coming up in the future.
Truly. So if that works for you, continue listening. We would
Please.
appreciate it.
Okay. Then.
We've got a couple of announcements real quick. We need to thank Rode Mics for providing the Rodecaster Pro, this delicious little device capturing our sultry sound
And our thoughts.
broadcasting over the wave.
It's capturing our thoughts.
It might be. And we also have got the Procaster mics and their fabulous articulating arms.
What do we call them?
The Procaster mics.
No, they're the roticulating arms.
No, that's you made that up.
I know I did.
Yes.
And I'm giving that to them gratis.
It's not trademarked yet. It's not trademarked.
Trademark.
It's not
Blues,
trademarked.
Bruce.
So anyways, we need to thank them. I also wanted to pull up, I talk all the time about when we get great feedback and mail and stuff. And
How about when we don't?
we do.
That's the stuff I want to read.
Yeah,
That's
I know
even
everybody
better.
wants to
Just
hear
forward that over to
dirty
me.
stuff. Well, I wanted to share this. This is from one of our new Grand Poobahs, Sam Jett.
Ooh,
Yes,
that's a rock and roll name, man.
That is. It really is. He said, "Hey, sorry. When we get new people that are supporting the show, I ask them a series of questions." He said, "Hey, thanks for reaching out to me. I'm pretty much a total noob to the guitar world. As far as my main gear of choice, let's see. I have one homemade pedal thanks to Aeon Effects, which is cool,
Yeah, we know those guys.
and
guy.
which is a Big Muff Pi clone." He says, "I've got an Ibanez ARX 320 I bought 13 years ago. Took a long hiatus, and I'm just getting back into playing. I also have a Roland Cube 20X for an amp. So you can see I don't have much in the way of a selection when it comes to gear, ... yet."
Yet.
Yes.
Keep
He says,
listening.
"A Delisle vintage studio amp is being built for me as we speak, though, which is super cool." We had Delisle on.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a great interview. I suggest going back and checking that one out, Delisle. And he says, "So I cannot tell you how excited I am about that. I heard about Jer on your podcast and said, I got to get on that." Right on. We love to hear that when people are following up and purchasing things from
Yeah.
the people that we have on the show.
Support the people that we talk to and let them know that you heard about them on the Guitar Knobs.
I don't know if I've ever asked anybody to do that. Thank
Well,
you.
I did.
That was dumb on my part. All this time,
I'm your
Holy
right hand
mackerel.
brain today.
Could have been getting cuts for 5 years. Jeez.
Exactly.
You got some retroactive, payouts
Yeah,
coming in.
Jiminy Christmas. He said, "I must admit, the favorite part of your show is how well you and the other knobs get along. That means a lot to us because we feel like it." I feel like I'm one of the guys when I'm listening. It's really refreshing hearing people talk about something they're so passionate about. And I've been listening for about 4 months, and now I mainly listen during my commutes. I honestly look forward to it every day. At first, I listened to a few, heard you guys, and I was hooked. To answer your question about committing to supporting you, which is something that I ask the people, I'm like, hey, why did you choose to do this? I want to invest in a community that is passionate about making music, exploring tone, and just being decent people to one another. I have been floored at how open, honest, and caring the people are in the guitar world, especially the pedal building community. I want to be part of that and contribute! ! So thank you, Todd and team. Your podcast is awesome. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for opening my guitar world up. I mean,
That's
awesome.
beautiful.
I read that to my wife. I was like, yeah, I want you to hear this because she sees how much time we put into this and everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a great feeling to hear that. But there's a thing that he mentioned in there, which is I feel like I'm one of the guys when I'm listening, and I love hearing people. When we started this show way back, like he just nailed two things that were that I just wanted to have. I'm like, I want to make a show for myself. If I want to hear a show, this is what I want it to, you know, sound like. I want to feel like I'm sitting there with the rest of the guys talking about stuff that I love. And so I really, truly appreciate hearing that feedback. And I know that especially Tony and Jared do as well.
Not so much
Rob.
Not so much. Kind of meaningless to me. So, you know.
Or
You'll get there, buddy. All right. And that's something I should mention right now. You know, we have Rob on tonight. We had Rob on last week. And we've had
What
him
does
on
that mean?
We've had him on the show several times.
A rub on, a rub off.
Well, we hope not to rub him off. Yes. Leave that.
Rub him off.
Thanks, Tony. No, legitimately.
That's my compensation, huh?
When we started our 5th year, I talked to the guys and I said, hey, you know, I'd like to think about how to expand the show a little bit and just, you know, keeping it fresh and keeping us well versed in things and maybe things that we don't know as much about. And immediately everybody said Rob.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Rob is the guy I call. I mean,
Rob's the guy that I call.
I know a little bit about amps.
You
but
know a lot about
you
amps,
know a
Tony.
lot.
Well, I know enough to get into trouble. I know enough
Tony
not to
knows
touch the
a
parts.
crap ton about it.
Yeah.
Well, and
Exactly.
to be fair, it's not about that you know about like, oh, I know all of the electronics and parts of the amp as much as I know what amps do. I know why you want like the what would you say, the front end of the amp more so than the back end.
And he knows, as far as sounds and the history of all the different brands.
That's
and
crazy. Yeah,
stuff
it's
that
like Rain Man.
I would not, no clue.
I'm an excellent driver.
Exactly.
But anyway, so Rob's our good friend of ours, and we want to have him on because he's the main reason we had him on the first time. I was like, this is a guy who really knows his stuff, and he's honest about it. And he shares that out, and he wants to help people out.
And he's the best. He's the best repair guy here in Central Ohio. I mean,
Pretty much, yes.
That I won't argue with. I'll go along with that.
I have a question. Rob, how long have you been doing the repairs?
Professionally, like getting paid for it, I was 20, so do the age, 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
So, anyways, Rob, you were the obvious choice to
thank you,
try to
Todd.
bring on in a more, now I'm not guaranteeing that he's going to be here every single time. It's up to him. He's got a schedule to keep.
This is a trial period.
He's a
They're gonna let me
businessman.
know in
He's on probation.
30-day probation.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a pink slip
So
next week.
if our ratings drop radically, guess who's
Magically disappears.
No red velvet blazer for you.
Yeah. There is an eject button underneath that chair, by the way.
I have no doubt.
Anyways, we're really happy to have Rob tonight, and
Thank you, guys.
every time that he's on.
Yes.
All right. Oh, and if anybody's wanting to check this out, they can go to, where can they go check you out, Rob?
Instagram is the most active of all the social media.
Okay.
Mad Cow Amplification.
All right, Mad Amplification. And Charles, where can people go to check out what you're doing?
Same thing. Instagram is the most active. We have an Instagram and a Facebook, but they're both at Silktone Amps.
All right, Silktone Amps. Go and check that out while we're doing the show. As long as you're not driving, or if you're lucky enough to have a driver, I mean, share it with them too.
Maybe they have a Tesla.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah,
There you go.
Okay, so we are going to get into what's going on in our music world this week. Woohoo! And Tony, why don't you kick it off and show us how to do it, and then we're going to hop over to Charles.
Okay,
That's
sounds
right.
good. Well, look out for that. This week, actually, in the last couple of days, there is a video circulating on YouTube right now from Baxter at Casino Guitars. And he's helping out a friend of his, Robbie Z, who had his entire collection of guitars and amplifiers stolen out of a storage unit.
Yeah, I
in
saw
San Jose.
that. I saw that interview today, actually.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, for anybody
Insane.
that loves guitars, I mean, this guy had so upwards of 180 guitars, and then these are mostly vintage guitars, custom color Fender Jaguars, Jazzmasters, 40 or 50 amps, some of his own personal records and things like that were, literally. One of his guitars showed up at Olivia's guitars, and his contact information was inside the case, and they knew that this guy was a buyer, not a seller. So they called him, and he said, we've got this guitar here of yours, and we know that you don't normally sell. And he says, well, I didn't sell that. And they said, you'd probably ought to check and see. And sure enough, somebody had replaced his lock on a storage unit with another lock. They cut it open, and it was completely empty.
Wow.
So,
Fortunately, I think he said that 17 of these have been tracked down and recovered, but that's still, that's a fraction of what's out there. And some of these are very special to him as well.
That's absolutely tragic.
Secondly, because he wasn't touring anymore, he did not put an insurance policy on them.
Oh, my gosh.
So he is basically SOL.
Oh, my gosh. I was just about to say, well, clearly he's got insurance.
Imagine having, and I did the math on this because of the vintage and everything. I was like, this is at least $500,000
Oh,
for
easily.
gear.
Easily. I figured about 15 or 20,000 on average per guitar.
Well, yeah,
Always
and
have
some
insurance.
of them were, but yeah. I was thinking on average like $4,000 to $5,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's why I was like, storage,
Yeah.
no insurance.
Well, yeah, and that got me to thinking. And I
So
think
you got an insurance policy.
Well, I'm looking into that, but I right
I
now
already did. For my crappy guitars.
Well, there's a couple of things I discovered.
A lot of pedals.
So the first thing I would tell everyone is a storage, like a used store kind of place, is probably not the best place to store a guitar collection or an amp collection.
Yeah, the temperature.
Well, it's temperature, it's humidity, it's and
Thieves.
a bolt cutter takes care of just about any lock.
Let me put it this way, Todd. Would you put $500,000 in cash
Yeah.
in a self store? That's the equivalent of what happened.
Yeah. Wow, that's remarkable.
So that prompted me to contact my insurance company for homeowners insurance. Now, some of my stuff is covered under my business insurance plan, but I contacted our agent, and sure enough, there is a limit as to what a homeowner's policy will cover. And if you have a pretty extensive collection, you might want to call your insurance agent.
It doesn't have to be vintage guitars either. If you got a whole bunch of pedals, that adds up quick.
No, if you've got $50,000 or $60,000 worth of stuff,
You don't even need that.
$20,000 worth of stuff.
Don't even need that.
But basically, you need to provide.
How much do you need, Todd? What's the exact figure?
you need, if it's worth money to you, insure it.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can't replace it, that's what insurance is for.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm getting renter's insurance pretty soon. I found a house to live in down here.
Oh, good for you. So,
Back to Tony.
So back to
make
I
sure.
talk too much. I know I talk way too much on this podcast.
Make sure that your insurance policy, your homeowners or renter's insurance policy, covers a collection like guitars or any other things, coins or guns or anything else you might be collecting, because normally there's a limit unless you specifically provide a rider for those items, which is what I'm doing right now.
You may have notes on here too. I went down this road about 10 years ago, and I found all kinds of loopholes.
Oh, yes.
Do you have all the loopholes listed there?
Well, I didn't list all the loopholes, but there are. And from what, in general, I was told is you can provide a list of what you have with serial numbers and or photographs and what you paid for them, and that's what it will, your policy will cover.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a lot of vintage stuff, it's generally, or it should be worth more than what you paid. So that's a whole other.
That's not a homeowner's thing. That's you're getting like Christie's or something.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
there are several companies. I think there's a company called Heritage. There's a couple of other places.
That's the keeper. Heritage.
Yeah, and they will provide. Now, granted, you have to have your collection appraised by an expert.
Not for Heritage.
Like
Not
me?
for Heritage? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, there you go.
So there you go. I have Heritage. I've had coverage with them for like, I don't know, eight years now.
Yeah.
So
well, good for you.
Yeah. There's other pitfalls though. Like some homeowners policy won't cover it if you use any of the equipment for profit. It also, some will cover it if it's outside the home. Some won't.
Right.
Some of the musician gear insurance, I remember what company it was, but one of their not disclosure, but one of the things that disallows the policy was if the gear is stolen from a trailer. And I had to send them an email to clarify this. I said, so a working musician has their gear in a trailer, which all full-time working musicians do every week. If it's stolen from the trailer, it's not covered. They're like, yes. I'm like, what is the point of your coverage then? That's most likely where it's going to come up missing if you're a working musician.
Right.
And they're like, nope, it won't be covered if it's from a trailer. If it's taken from your personal car, they would cover it. All these, you got to read the fine print.
Yeah.
Yeah. So read the fine print.
So, I mean, if nothing else, if you have a nice collection of guitars, make sure you at least have a list, maybe with some photographs, serial number, description, year, what it is, any unique identifying marks, things like that. I know a lot of people will, put their name and information underneath a pick guard or in the neck pocket, things like that.
Ooh, that's clever.
And that will help identify. If something does get stolen, it certainly helps makes the process of recovering.
If you own
it.
this guitar, it's stolen. If you're holding this guitar right now, it is stolen.
So the story, the video really, hit me hard, because I don't have quite that kind of a collection, but I do have a decent collection. And, should something happen, even if
that's not you don't have that at your house or your business, do you?
It depends who's asking.
That's often in one of your other homes.
Yeah, oh yes, my secret lair.
Yeah,
Tony's gear lair.
It's in a storage unit at the bottom of Lake Erie.
The big lake they call Gitchagumi.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the show, everybody.
All right. Have a good day. Have a great guitar week.
Charles.
I got to rush out and make a phone call to call my insurance company real fast. Can you guys wait like an hour? So my week has been weird. I drove down to San Diego to drop off an amp to one of my new dealers, and after that spent the day on the beach. And I've never been to San Diego, so that was pretty cool.
It's beautiful.
You're out in California.
Oh my God!
Right?
Yeah. I grew up in the Bay Area near Oakland, and I recently moved to the Sacramento area. But yeah, this week we traveled down here, and it's weird for a few reasons. One, why have I never been to San Diego? I got down there and was like, oh my God, this is way different than the beaches up north.
Yeah.
And two, I haven't gone anywhere in like a year and a half, so that was it was cool to get out and be around people for the first time in a long time. I'm vaccinated now, so I feel invincible and
right.
going. There were so many people around, and it was just like, oh man, I feel okay.
Yeah. That's cool. Did
So
you
that
go
was
across
cool.
the bridge and go to Coronado Island and all that business?
No, we didn't do that. We only had a day there, so we just kind of chilled on Pacific Beach. We got a hotel like right on the beach, so that was cool.
Ah, that's right.
And yeah, it was really nice. And then we went into got some really good tacos and stuff while we were down there. We lucked out and found one of the best taco shops around, apparently. So
That's good.
yeah. And I'm super sunburnt, so that sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. So you got your dealers happy anyways, right?
Right. So yeah, as far as the music part of it goes, it was really cool to go down and see the new dealer's shop. It's always nice. I don't often get to personally drop off amps to dealers, so just getting to see them play it and kind of demo the amp in front of them and seeing their reaction, that's always fun. And they had a really cool they had their showroom in the front. The dealer was Coast Sonic in Carlsbad, and in the back room, they had this awesome photo studio and sound booth set up. And so it was really cool to get to hear the amp in that environment and see how their whole process works.
Awesome. That sounds pretty cool. That's a good idea, actually, to have a bit of a photo studio in a guitar shop.
Mm-hmm.
Because most guitar shops are pretty active on social.
Yeah, so much stuff's online now. So yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, most of them are. They have special departments now. It's just
I know.
crazy. Yeah.
Speaking of special departments, Jared, what's going on?
I don't know what to choose to share about because there's a lot.
Well, pick one. We got lots of shows to come.
Pick the worst one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, definitely not the worst one. But so if everyone remembers, we talked about our good buddy James Pegler.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, so
And as a refresher, he's one of the main not winders. He's one of the main wiring experts, right? Down at Gibson.
he is a wiring fanatic, man. So
Yeah.
I met him on Tuesday.
How cool.
Yeah, because part of my job was to, not part of my job, but my job is going to be down there into that facility where he's at quite often, along with being at headquarters and talking about pickups and all that kind of thing. But I went and introduced myself during a team meeting there, and there he was. And after that team meeting, and he came up to me and shook my hand, and he just talked, and we talked for a while. And we had a really good time, and he showed me his area, and he showed me all the wiring and what he does there and all that kind of thing. That brings me to the pickup shop. It is big, several people there. They have great morale. It is a fantastic place to work. They have several of the same old machine that does several pickups at a time. It's awesome. I'm in heaven when I'm there.
That's awesome, man. Well, and you're a
I
lifelong
yeah.
Gibson guy, so this is this
I
is perfect.
I am. So I didn't really have anything until later tomorrow morning. So I said to my boss, could I please go to the pickup shop and spend more time there? And he's like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. So yeah, I get to go there again and nerd out and get deeper into the process there. So so that's my job now. Maybe I shouldn't talk about that all the time, but I'm sorry, man. When you do what you love for a living, that is awesome. Other than that, I brought two guitars down here to Nashville with me. I brought my 2005 Gibson Les Paul Custom USA model. It is probably one of my favorite Les Pauls I ever bought, and it's not an R9 custom shop yada yada. It just happened to be an awesome guitar. I also brought my 1955 J45 down.
Nice.
That thing I think it sounds better in Nashville than it does in Ohio.
It's the humidity difference.
I think it's the atmosphere and there's more moisture to keep these guitars alive down here.
That's probably
from drying out. Yeah.
So are you going
Probably why Gibson moved.
Are you going to teach him how to do double creams down there?
No comment.
A pickup war.
Jeez.
No comment. DiMarzio won that.
First.
By the way, they won that 5-year-long battle. So
Wow.
they're trying to trademark double cream blade pickups now.
Oh, jeez.
And they actually admitted it. So you're not violating their mark if you put a cover over the cream coils.
So now you just got to make clear plastic covers.
Yeah. Well, I'm not making those decisions here at Gibson. So
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well, that was
right
that's good stuff. Well, we're really excited for your new job, and can't wait to hear more about it as things develop. Jared's got an office and stuff now. Whew.
Can you believe it?
That's crazy.
yeah,
It's like it makes me think of The Incredibles a little bit.
yeah.
Well, anybody who's seen The Incredibles knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I haven't
Anybody
seen
that
it.
doesn't,
No idea.
well,
I think I saw it, but I still don't know what the hell you're talking about.
yeah. Think about how big Mr. Incredible is at his little tiny desk.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna interrupt and say one more thing.
Okay.
I did find a house, and I made sure there was like 2 bedrooms and a bonus room, and I'm taking a lot of amps and good stuff down there. By the way,
Nice.
I just want to say that. So I'm gonna have some gear down there, and it's gonna be awesome.
That's cool, man.
Well, I'd like
Yep.
to add that I thought Mrs. Incredible was very hot.
No.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tony. Rob, follow that up.
Yeah. What are we talking about again?
Incredibles.
Yes.
I've lost track.
What's going on in your music world this week?
So nothing in my personal music world
I thought you were
really.
getting ready for a
You
big
said
gig.
you had a big
did
gig.
I'm gonna get it. You know what I'm gonna pick, and then I gotta load it up and change the strings. And I have to.
See, whoever's in that chair gets picked on.
Yeah, I'm gonna move. Jared, by the way, I'm in your spot, so that's why.
Ew. Yeah, you shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, apparently not.
All right.
So, well, that was 2 weeks ago. So that was my music week 2 weeks ago. You know,
How did it go? Because
The listeners don't know that.
It
Yeah.
went okay. It was a gig.
Yeah.
Uneventful.
Yeah.
Didn't
You play any
rain on us.
Loverboy
Did
or
you play your
anything?
George Lynch
No,
signature
Loverboy.
model guitar?
No.
Oh.
No. Any Joe Bonamassa?
No, John. No.
Okay.
No. So
John Bonamosa.
John Bonamosa.
Yeah, it's a new signature model.
So,
So no hiccups. You got all your gear out there. It was
Yep.
good to get back into the thing. I'm
Yeah.
giving you things to
it
work
was
with here.
uneventful. Well, I was going to say what's going on this week. This is good. And,
Okay.
and I know some people are going through this right now. I'm not the only one. Tubes are becoming a bit of a scarcity right now.
Oh, you just mentioned that. I'm going to slide right in.
Go ahead, slide in.
I got a message from one of our listeners who has suggested a 101, and it's right up that alley, and I can't wait to do it.
On purchasing tubes?
No,
or-
just sort of a 101 on like, so where is the tube world going? What do we, all
Well,
that stuff. So we don't have to crack that egg right yet and get a yolk all over the
Here's
place.
a little glimpse. Currently, it's not looking fantastic.
Yeah.
There's only a few factories left in the world. I can't pronounce the one in China, Shaoshang or something. Shuang. There we go. That factory burnt down. What was it? Almost 2 years ago now.
Something like that. Yeah, I'd say yes.
I'd
Year
say
and a
2
half.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost 2
So,
years.
anyways,
Yeah.
and supposedly they were going to rebuild. There's no update on when, if it's going to happen.
Right.
So that was a huge part of production that was shut down, and now JJ is experiencing production delays and issues. And a lot of distributors in the U.S. are limiting quantities, are already out of certain things. So that's what I spent today doing for 3 hours, is going through all my tubes in stock and estimating what I'd need to survive the next 6 months if everything goes.
And you like the JJs, right?
I stock a bunch of different things. It depends on what the application is, because I'm doing a lot of repair. So in this amp, it likes this.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's a lot of new sensor stuff, which is Tungsol and EH and Sovtech and all that, and then JJs as well. So I spent 3 hours counting through inventory, checking everything, estimates for what I need 6 months, placing huge orders that I didn't want to spend money on right now, but.
Have you considered fixing tubes?
No, that has not crossed my mind. No.
Tube repair.
No.
Come on.
Although, we'll see where we're at in 6 months here,
Yeah, you might have to.
So it's,
Well, in the pedal world, there's been quite a few issues with parts too. I remember Wooly from Champion Lecky had to post something. He's like, "Hey, everybody, I'm woefully missing parts, and I'm trying to get your orders out."
Nothing you can do.
Be patient with your builders, everybody.
Yeah, I don't know if people realize that, but just because something's made in the U.S. or made in UK or whatever, all the resistors, capacitors, the enclosure, the pots, the switches, all that stuff, almost all of it is made in Asia. Mm-hmm. And all that stuff's sitting on docks, just waiting because it's not marked medical or, something priority. So
yeah, or when you're watching Instagram for whatever reason, and you sometimes I'll get on the feed and it's all like the Russian car crashes or like all the container ships that are falling over into the ocean. I don't know how they're like, based on your recent watches, you should see this. I'm like, this is terrible. Why am I getting this?
Wow.
And there goes somebody's entire pedal flipping business.
It's transformers and speakers too. It's crazy. Everything. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Remarkable. Well,
what about you, Todd?
What about you, Todd?
I just feel like the wind got sucked out of this room.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So speaking of tubes, everybody, and resistors and transformers and all that good stuff.
Capacitors.
Diodes, electrodes.
I'm not talking about the
cathodes,
toys,
overload.
transformers, right?
Generator, oscillator. Make a circle with me. That's
I
a great song.
I love a nice toroidal
That's
transformer.
You can see a doctor about that.
I love them.
Okay. So what I did was I got some settings on my HX Stomp that doesn't have any tubes or anything. So,
What?
That's a great segue.
I had family staying over, and I'm like, I want to keep playing. I got to work on new music and stuff, and so I set up a new preset so that I tried to dial it in as close as I could to the new-ish sound that I'm trying to work with our band. It's not radically different, but there's some differences, and so it was really fun just kind of going like, oh, no, it needs to be like this, and so I got that set up, and then ended up playing for like an hour, and I was like, nobody's heard a thing, and I actually worked out a couple issues with a couple songs I was doing, so
Nice.
it was really cool. And so I shared that out on Instagram, and that was what I did among doing a lot of fezzy stuff. We got our last 6 fezzes to our fez pedals to our patrons.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so we did a drawing to see who would get those. And
So how many
6
total did you send out?
I will have to do
384.
Ooh, Todd's been busy.
Yeah, no. I think it was about. I want to say it was about 25 or 27, something
Yeah,
like
that
that.
sounds about right.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, all hand assembled
that's what
and
I
all that
mean.
business. And
Yeah.
anyhow, so that's what's going on with that. So those are on their way to our fine supporters, our executive producers, and I'm really thrilled about that. So, okay.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah, Tony.
Hey, on that brand spanking new Ferrari Red HX Stomp pedal that you've got,
Yeah.
how do you wire that into the rest of your board?
Oh, man. I'm glad you asked me that. I use the same thing I use on all my other pedals.
What's that?
Tour Gear Designs patch.
No way.
It's true. It's true.
Jared's
They're
secret
the best.
recipe?
It is.
That's right.
Why, Jared?
Because they have a very, very small part where it's behind the thing where you stick it in the hole.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
That's a T-shirt right there that you need to wear at the next NAMM.
No, seriously, no. Those jacks they're very small. They fit anywhere on the pedal.
Yeah.
So the
specifically,
little power thing.
the top part that you get that sticks out
Exactly.
of the pedal.
That would be like the jack.
Well,
If you have a mini
the
problem,
jack is
no
in.
problem.
Oh, the jack is in.
The jack is in.
The plug is out.
Yep.
Well, the plug, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
It's really small.
Yeah, they're perfect for top mounted. They're perfect for top mounted pedals. They're super flat, and they come in a variety.
Some
of,
say as flat as a crepe.
some, not many.
They are.
Actually, one. So go over to tourgeardesigns.com/discount/ the guitar knobs, and you're going to get your discount on that. Okay.
And you're not going to just want one.
No.
You're going to want many, and they come in a bunch of different sizes.
Or several.
And
S-shape.
different connecting shapes and different things like that. You're going to love this stuff.
Yep, good stuff. So thank you to Tour Gear Designs for sponsoring our 4 on the Floor.
Thank you.
Jared?
How about a little bit of this?
1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor. All right, Charles, Silktone Amps. Give us your 4 on the floor.
4 on the floor. I've been thinking about it all week as I've been down here, and I kind of have it figured out, but I kind of wanted to talk about it on the air too. So
Sure.
I can't do my own stuff that I've built, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, not good, but
Unless you're Dr. Z.
thank God.
Dr. Z got away with
You
it.
got to pass.
Yeah.
I challenge anybody to stop Dr. Z from talking.
4 of us couldn't do it.
So I would definitely need a fuzz, and if I can't do my own, I've narrowed it down to 2, but I'm having such a hard time deciding. It would either be if I want, I guess I'd have to go the new Benson germanium fuzz, the thermal controlled one, just because. Why not?
Very
Like
cool.
it's so good. But that was the close runner up was a Fuzz Factory. The ZVEX Fuzz Factory, just because I've had one for so long, I know all the ins and outs, and I really like to tweak knobs. So that's one thing you can't really do with my other one. But overall, I think I'd go with the Benson. And then behind that, I definitely need a muff. So can I do the JHS Muffaletta? Does that count? Because it's like 6 of them in one. Yeah, then I'll definitely go.
It is a pedal.
Right. Yeah. And so Muffaletta for sure, just for all my big muff needs.
Well, can we go back to the Benson and talk a little bit about that?
Holy mackerel, man, we turned that corner a long time ago, but let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious because you said something about a thermo control.
Oh yeah, no, he came out with an awesome fuzz pedal. So he thermal controls it, so it just takes the transistors and it regulates it with heat. So like germanium fuzzes have always had the problem of
Too
in a
cold,
different
too hot, it's different.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. And he implemented a really good way to get rid of that, and he just thermal controls it, so it's good all the time.
With thermonium.
With thermonium?
Yeah, with thermonium. I'm not sure the ins and outs of it, but
no, that's cool.
That'll be for him to talk about.
Yeah, that's kind of a neat concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you've got your Muffaletto.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Muffaletta for sure. I'd probably just stay on the Big Muff Pie most of the time, but
it's there if you need it.
It's there if I need it. Yeah, why not do the Muffaletta?
Right.
And then definitely a Deluxe Memory Man. The EHX Deluxe Memory Man. That's my favorite delay. I'm always using delay, and that one I can get so many weird noises out of it when I want it.
Now, do you like the vintage style or vintage pedal or one of the reissues?
I like the vintage style. Yeah, I've had one for 15 years or so, 15, 20 years, and yeah, again, all the ins and outs I know already, and it sounds so good. I'm not in love with the vibrato on it, but again, it's there if you want it or need it. And then it kind of covers, it has an okay boost too. If you turn the delay all the way down and just boost it, that kind of covers that ground too.
Do you have this on a like a pedal board or just kind of on the floor-ish?
No, I have it on a board. I often will pull it up and play with the knobs, so it's higher up.
Yeah. How do you manage the power supply on that?
I use the, what is it, a Voodoo Labs? I forget which one. The
because are we talking about the
8
vintage
jacks
one
or
with
so.
the direct out?
You mean the hardwired AC?
Yeah.
Oh no, not that. It's not that vintage. Mine is like late 90s, early 2000s. So it uses like the 24 volt supply or something.
Yeah.
But even if I had, I would love to take a vintage one. I just don't have it.
Yeah.
But even that one on that Voodoo Labs, it does have the AC out.
24 out.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Well, it has the full
like the full
120
plug.
line. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Accessory outlet.
I forget the name of the little Voodoo Labs power supply, but yeah, it has the 12 volt output supplies, and I parallel them up or put them in series or whatever for the 24 volts.
Well, you could get creative too. I mean, if you've got like a wedge style board or something like that, or I mean, maybe just any other kind of board, you could run a little splitter off of your actual power thing and just tuck it all underneath.
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 on the floor pedals, right? We didn't talk about I can run as many little, octopus cables as I want, right?
Many cables.
Yeah, just don't wire it directly to an outlet.
yeah. And then the last one was a really tough choice, but I think I have this pedal that I really like. It's a vintage Ross DP combo. It's a distortion phaser.
What?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that. Tony,
it's a little
Tony must
purple.
be.
Yeah, it's a little purple metal box, and it has it's like the coolest phaser I've ever heard. It sounds so good, and the distortion too. It's like, just really raw, heavy distortion. It's way different than the boosts and fuzzes that I have. So running those two together is awesome. It is a little noisy. It's an older one with, the full AC line. So that one does introduce a lot of noise. I thought about modding it and, putting more filtering in, but I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to mess with anything.
Yeah, and that's the that is the old one with the hardwired AC, right?
Yeah. So I plug that one into the back of the pedal power.
Right. It'd be interesting to hear what that sounds like compared to the newer one that they did, the white one, which is essentially the same thing. It's just a newer one.
Yeah, it's really cool. They started doing the reproductions. I saw that and was like, oh my God, yeah, it's such a good pedal. I've never heard a new one.
Yeah.
Ooh, those are pricey. Holy moly.
Yeah. Well, they're $300 anyways.
$300, yeah.
Is that the new ones? Yeah.
No, the old ones.
The
old ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a new one or newer one. I mean, it's not a brand new one.
Couple
it'd be
$100.
interesting to see when that was released. I mean, but yeah, I don't know when the white ones were re-released, I guess. But anyways, it'd be interesting to hear how they might be different or not different. Those ones are still pretty old, I feel like. Probably like early 90s, maybe late 80s.
I have no idea, Todd.
I should find out more.
The
about
original
this.
ones?
The originals? I think
the white ones.
The white reissues.
Oh.
Yeah,
I thought those were way later. I thought those were more recent.
Yes, I'm
Aren't
just
they
looking
doing
at
them
one
like
that
now?
looks older. Yeah, they did re-release several ones that were actually they've got black ones too, but those are hardwired as well. So I don't know what's going on. There's all kinds of them on here.
I'd be willing to bet somebody bought the Ross name and the rights and just kind of made a new company.
It's entirely possible.
I thought I read that it was his son, but I'm not sure. I thought I read that, but
that's an interesting mix
I could be wrong.
of effects for one pedal. Now I think about distortion and phaser.
The black and the white and the purple are all hardwired.
Oh,
so,
wow.
I don't know. I can't tell if they've done a new one. New one. But I suppose if you get any of those, they probably sound awesome. But the purple ones are like late 70s models.
Yeah, late 70s. I can't find them online, but they're on Instagram though. The new guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ross had some just really crazy good stuff. I mean, their compressors were good.
Yes, they're known for it.
I mean, that was the big pedal. But yeah, I mean, they had a whole line of things that came out late 70s, early 80s.
Fantastic. Well, that certainly sparked our interest, didn't it, everybody? Nod along and say, yes, it did, Todd.
Yes, it did, Todd.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And thank you to Jared for our delicious little intro. We love it when he does that on the fly. It's always exciting and terrifying. We need to talk to Charles about Silktone Amps. I think he's heard of them before, and he is, from what we can tell, he knows a few things about it.
They're new, right?
Yeah. So,
are they hardwired?
They definitely hardwired. Yes. So Charles and I had a conversation before the show, not today, but later, and we really enjoyed talking with each other. At least I'm saying that for both of us. He might have hated the experience altogether, but I certainly enjoyed it, and I thought he'd be a great guest on the show. And he's got a new amp out, the Silktone, and he's going to tell you all about that here in a second. But I think first of all, we'd like to hear. Well, first of all, tell us the thing that you have out right now, and then we're going to get into like how you wound up doing this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Silktone amp is our main focus right now. That's the amp I had been working on for years, and just it is a single-ended KT66 based tube amp. It's 12 watts. It has treble, mid, bass tone controls with a bypass switch to bypass the tone stack for a huge gain boost, and a really nice reverb from what I've been told.
Awesome. We're going to get all of the details about that. You're going to share a bunch of that out. I just wanted to make sure that everybody kind of had an idea of what you were doing there. What's the output on that?
12 watts.
Awesome. And it's a 12-inch combo. And you run that in a selection of Alnico and ceramic.
Yeah. We designed our own speaker for it. We tried a lot of off-the-shelf stuff, a lot of different selections and everything else available. And there were some good ones, but I like to find a really good speaker first when I'm designing an amp, and then trying to voice around it. So I have to do as little filtering as possible. And I didn't quite find one that was perfect. So I called up WGS warehouse and designed one with them, and,
awesome.
and they made it for me, and it's incredible. It's my favorite one. So it worked out really well.
That's cool. We've had them on a few times. And if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about guitar speakers, we've got 2 101s directly from Warehouse Guitar Speakers. So check those out.
Nice.
So let's do a little rewind here. Tony, can I get a rewind sound? Thank you. Yeah. Just sounds like you hit your head on the way back from the bar.
Yeah.
So how Tony is in
snorting
rare
over
form. Charles, how did you arrive here at? Well, now I've made an amp. Let's start. Go to the Wayback Machine. Let us into how you got into music gear.
Music gear. I always played around with, guitar and stuff. My cousins were in bands all the time. I was never in a band growing up, but I was always around musicians, and I always loved music. And I kind of, I was an introvert when I was younger, and I just kind of played in my bedroom. And I was way more into tone and tweaking knobs and stuff than I was music theory and writing big songs. So when I started doing that, I got more and more into the gear. And then honestly, what got me way more into it was when I got into like hi-fi, like stereo, like tube stereo amps is what got me into tubes. And that kind of set off some sparks and just sent me flying down a path. I heard like a really high-end stereo system for the first time, and it was coming out of a tube amp, and I was like, what the hell is that? Why are these light bulbs making music? I was probably 18, and when I learned how expensive they were, when I decided I had to have them, I almost fell on the floor. It was like a $200,000 stereo system or something. So I was like, whoa, I can't do that. So I'm going to look into it. And from then on, just kind of really became obsessed with tubes and what was going on. And I wanted to have them around. And then that's when I got into tube guitar amps and got an AC30 was my first amp. And I just fell in love with that thing. And I started tweaking those and kind of learning how to build my own because I couldn't afford to buy the crazy expensive stereo amps. So the first thing I built was a tubed preamp to put in front of my receiver, and because that was a little simpler. And then it went on to power amps and phono stages and stuff like that. And I didn't build my own.
You're talking about hi-fi equipment.
Hi-fi, yeah, that was all hi-fi. And that's how I learned about, parts and how parts can make a difference and sound good or not. And as I got better and better at that, it started to get really boring because the way I started looking at it was, well, I'm only building these to do one thing, like they're supposed to reproduce music accurately. So guitar amp design was way more interesting to me because I found many parts over the years that sounded really good, but not natural, like really colored and like mid-heavy and stuff like that. And I started thinking like these would be great in like a guitar amp application, but not in this stereo. So I had this like just like huge Rolodex of different parts I was interested in. And I started tweaking circuits and stuff like that and landed on some really cool amp designs and just trying to squeeze the last bit of quality out of existing designs, like old Fender stuff and stuff like that it started making a big difference. And then as I learned more about that, I started doing my own circuits and my own, tweaking here and there. And I finally decided to do my own amplifier when I found the KT66 tube and, kind of realized there's not really a lot of these around anymore. They were huge in the 60s in the UK, but they kind of went under
where did you find that?
So I knew about it with stereo amps like well before. I'd always had them on stereo monoblocks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they sounded great, but I didn't hear one in a guitar amp application until I heard it wasn't a vintage one, but it was a reissue of a vintage replica JTM 45. And it had KT66s in it, and I was blown away. I was like, oh yeah, that's the sound I'm looking for. I was actually already working on a circuit of my own at that point, but when I found the KT66 and implemented it into my circuit, it was like, okay, I'm done. Like, this is what needs to go out there.
So real quick, we're gonna tap our resident amp expert here.
Tony?
So yeah, actually it's me.
Put a 6L6 in it.
Surprise! It's me. No, the KT66. So that's the fat one. That's how that. So I'm just
Coke bottle-ish.
Yeah, it's sort of pear shaped and fat. Did I mention it was fat?
I think you did.
Yeah, interesting thing.
It's shaped.
It sounds fat too.
The KT66 is the designator for a beam tetrode vacuum tube introduced by Marconi Osram Valve Co. Limited of Britain in 1937.
Wow. Okay.
Rob,
Todd?
tell us, so the KT66, you've touched on this before as you've been on the show. Is this what?
Probably not the KT66. That one is just not very prevalent as he's mentioned in guitar amps. It's a rare beast. In fact, when you read that off, it reminded me that it's not a pentode. It's not a very common
kinkless tetrode.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's going to be a pretty drastic departure from most other tube amps, or you're going to hear from 6V6 to 6L6, all that.
Right. And characteristically, how?
I don't know. I honestly can't speak to that.
Okay.
I don't have enough experience with that one.
Well, this is going to be super interesting.
We'll have to ask our special guest to compare.
Let's ask our special guest. Yeah. That's what I was trying to get to, but you were too busy talking.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Charles.
Rob.
Quit now.
So the KT66 is not so prevalent anymore. And then they tried to bring it back, I think, in the 90s, and only the factory in China was making them and not very well. So there was a lot of failures, and it didn't go over well. But now the quality is up there with the rest of them because it is becoming more popular in hi-fi again. So you can get them for guitar. And while a lot of people haven't heard of it, like everyone has heard it, it was a huge amp in the 60s. Like all of the famous like tone legends supposedly used amps with KT66s. The JTM 45, like the Marshall Bluesbreaker amp, is the big one. Anyone who knows the Bluesbreaker tone, you can't get it without a KT66. And a lot of people don't know that. You know, I know so many people they're chasing the woman tone or something, and they're doing it on these, 6v6 Fender amps or something.
Now, let me interrupt you real quick. So talking about JTM 45, now some of the reissues have got 606s in it. So if you were to use that amp to compare like the KT66 to a 606, tonality, output, how would you kind of describe the two?
So the 6L6, I think, is a fine all-arounder. I'm not in love with it. The really good vintage ones sound good, but as far as new production tubes go, I'm not in love with any of them. So looking at the 6L6 as a baseline, just middle of the road all-around tube, the KT66 I think has a way sweeter top end, like closer to a 6V6, just really airy, sweet top end. And it has a way bigger low end. It can pump out lows and just fatter tones effortlessly. So you have to account for that. Like in my wiring, I in the filtering, I let more lows through because it can handle them. And
so really quick, we just compared. We just said KT66, 6L6, 6V6. Just a brief sort of tonal guide here. 6L6, Rob, what are we going to find those in?
That's your classic, think blackface Fender sound.
Okay.
Wider. People typically think scooped out in the mids, but it's really that the 606 is a wider frequency response.
Okay. And the 6V6?
Narrower, as he mentioned, less high end, but it's lacking in the lows as well because it's a very narrow tube.
And lower output.
And lower output, of course, yeah, which is less headroom comparatively if you're...
So earlier breakup.
Yeah.
In theory.
And I'm interested, the KT66 probably has a drastically different distortion character to it, right?
That's the one I was saving for last there. So, while you get... It's so hard in the tone world to, sometimes you want more of something, and when you get more of it, it kills the rest.
It's all give and take. Yep.
It's all give and take. But that seemingly with the KT66, I was like, whoa, it's more of everything, and it's still all amazing. So on top of all that, as far as the frequency spectrum goes, the overdrive is just, you can't touch it. It has such a harmonic, crazy overdrive. I don't know how or why, but it just saturates way differently, probably because of the extended low end. And you just get these huge, fat overdrive tones that the other tubes, I don't think, approach.
It's probably the Tetra design, too, because the Pensa by nature will cancel out a lot of that distortion. So,
yeah. That's
what I was going to say.
And then in the Silktone amp specifically, I'm using it in single-ended mode. So in single-ended mode versus push-pull, most push-pull designs, like any amp over 8 watts in the last 60 years is typically push-pull. And
what push-pull? Describe that for the listeners.
So basically two tubes splitting the AC signal. It allows it to be more efficient. With less power, you get more like AC output, like more wattage. So like a single 6L6, for instance, is rated for, I think, like 35 watts. You don't get that in single-ended mode. You'll get like a third of that, maybe 10 watts or so. But in push-pull mode together, you can basically like quadruple that and get 40 watts out of it. But that's done by split, one tube handles the positive and one tube handles the negative. And in push-pull mode, it cancels a lot of the second harmonic. It cancels the even order harmonics a lot. It's just inherent in the design. So you get more third harmonic distortion out of it. So it changes the overdrive tone a lot.
Interesting.
In a single-ended amp, like the most prevalent one or familiar one would be the Champ, the Fender Champ, which is the 6v6, like 5-watt output. The drive is so much different. And that's because you still get that second order distortion. And that's the one that's the most pleasing to the ear. That's the really harmonic, just, second octave.
Interesting. So, I'm going to make a characterization here, and feel free to trod upon me for doing so. Not just you. I'm looking at these two clowns here, and
We're waiting to
Jared.
pounce.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Todd.
my point was running a single tube. Okay, in theory here, running the single tube, you might be getting a truer tone from that circuit, because you're not shaving off, you're not pushing and pulling, and you're not mixing.
Give or take. It all depends on what you're trying to get.
Depends how you look at it, I guess. A truer
So
tone.
you're saying
I mean,
I was right.
If you want to get into theory here, I guess if you're looking for what you're used to, the most common distortion tones are probably the push-pull stuff, just because way more amps do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the truer tone of the actual tube,
That's what I'm
if
saying.
you want distortion, if you want all of the harmonic content, I think would be single. I like single-ended stuff way more, just because it's way richer, and I like it a lot at the lower volumes. I find that a lot of push-pull amps, you have to kind of push to get to open up and sound real good. But the single-ended stuff, I find, sounds really good kind of anywhere.
Awesome. Well, I just learned a ton of stuff right here.
I haven't talked so technical about it in a while. It's fun.
Oh, it's going to get way more technical, man.
Good.
How about in
I'm
terms of compression with the KT66 versus like a 6L6 or a EL34?
I think that comes down more to the transformer. The actual tubes, they can handle most of the range. I guess it compresses more because you have those bigger harmonics that don't cancel out. It will kind of saturate a little quicker.
All right. So you get probably a little more power section distortion when you push it.
Oh yeah, that's what this one, the Silktone amp, is all about. There's no master volume or anything because I was afraid people would turn it down. I find that a lot of people, when they have a master volume, they're afraid to keep anything dimed. Mm-hmm. And master volumes get a lot of flack because of that, where really, if you just crank it, it's like it's not there. If it's designed well. So the Silktone amp, when you start to push it, or it's really easy if you put it in the raw silk mode because it has a lot of preamp gain. But if you start to push it, you get that huge power tube distortion, and it's incredible. So I'll mention that most preamp tubes, the triodes, those are all single-ended. So the way that a 12AX7 overdrives with its full harmonic content, that's why a lot of people like preamp gain, because it sounds a lot sweeter and thicker. Now you're just doing it on a way bigger power scale. So.
Okay.
Kind of like Tony.
Jared woke up.
Morning, Jared.
He's like, finally, someone didn't attack me.
That's great.
Oh, God.
Oh, boy. Anyways, that was a delightful display of technical narration that helped us understand. I mean, I'm selfishly really interested in hearing what these things, why they're so different.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the preamp now.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Should I ask you?
Yeah, ask me a question, I guess.
Let's talk about the preamp.
Let's talk about the preamp.
What's the influence or what you're going after? Because it's 3-band EQ and the raw mode and all that.
If you don't mind, I just want to share my own personal experience with this that can set up that
That's
you're
what I'm
about to
looking
get
forward to. I want to hear about your guys' experience with it.
Okay. It was great to get the amp. We've had several amp manufacturers on and talking about their amps and everything, and it is difficult to ship an amp. And, you know, it's not like a lot of the small builders have stacks of amps laying around to just go, oh, sure,
Right.
you know, here are one of 20 people that are going to be demoing and all that business. So we've never expected to get amps. So when this showed up, I was really excited. Pulled it out, and it was, you know, it's a really nice looking amp.
It's a beautiful amp.
It really is, and so that's a check. That's a bonus right
Check.
there. And
Thank you.
when I plugged it in, I know that, you know, you have on this amp, you have a mode that's called chiffon and one called raw silk, which I think is very clever. The chiffon mode engages an EQ stack.
Yeah.
And that is a low, middle, high, or bass, mid, treble, whatever you want to say there. TMB. And so with that, you can really sculpt the tone that you want. As I was turning it up, I was like, wow, this is cool because I can play at a lower volume, but I'm still getting the sound. And then I kept pushing it a little bit, and I think I was probably maybe just shy of half the way up, and I was like, okay. And I say, I'm gonna see what the raw silk does, and I flipped it down, and it was like, holy crap! It was like the whole thing just like came alive in my hands, and that was exciting because I wasn't expecting it. Number one, and you know, it's sort of the McFly thing where, you know, you stand in front of the amp and you hit that and you're like, whoa! Right? Now, what I will say is that oftentimes when you do that with an amp, you hear tones that just make your ears ache. Like there are certain frequencies that like really just do hurt my ears. And it's not as pleasant. It's like, it's big, but it's not pleasant. And this was big and pleasant. I found it to be
Kind of like Jared.
kind of like Jared, yeah. And so there I am down in my basement, and fortunately the rest of the family was gone because I was just playing my heart out and at this awesome volume, and the tone was great, and I felt it. I felt it given back to me, and I did like that quite a bit. And I was I don't even think I was running any of my pedals out of it. And then I plugged it into my board and I did all that business. But
And that ruined it.
no, I did put the fuzz. I tell you what, that fuzz sounds amazing through it. I'm just saying.
The Fez is a good pedal.
Yeah.
Well, let me talk about my experience.
Yes, share your experience.
So I felt.
Oh, sorry, time's up, Tony. We got to head on over
was
to
perfect.
Jared's house. Go ahead.
I felt like the amp was fighting me with the tone stack in the chiffon mode up till about 9 on the volume.
Okay.
Like
And
not
I-
wanting to give it back to you.
It just, I mean,
was holding back.
It was holding back.
I kind of experienced a little bit of that, and that's why I
Okay.
dumped into raw silk mode because I wanted the rock power at me.
Now the raw silk mode, definitely. I mean, it's an incredible sound at that setting. Now the question is that something that, you know, a typical player can use in a live situation
Well,
without any kind of, you know,
I could.
tonal control?
I could.
You could?
I absolutely. I as soon as I got my pedals going, I was like, yep, I could kill this sound. I think this would be fantastic
Yeah.
live. I think the tone stack. One thing I noticed in some of the demos, so Demos in the Dark did
Yeah,
a
I
demo
saw
on it,
that
and
one.
Ronquillo did one.
Yep.
And they actually did a lot of like, I don't know if you could say jazzy stuff or like maybe not raucous stuff when they were in the chiffon mode. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that was intentional on your part, Charles, but that's the experience that I had, and I think maybe Tony had a little bit. Of the
Yeah,
same
I
thing.
think so. I think, and what I found, I tried it with like 4 different guitars, and I felt that the one that sounded best with it was a P90 guitar.
Oh, wow.
And the P90 seemed to react a little bit better with the amp. Humbuckers got a little muddy, I would say. Single coils almost were
And this
just
is
too
in
light
in
of
the
a
chiffon?
touch. In the chiffon mode.
Yeah.
Now in the raw silk mode, almost anything through it sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
But I found that the P90s were a real nice matchup with the amp.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I did my Hagstrom Viking, which has the humbuckers, and then the Les Paul Special, which has the P90s, and I did quite enjoy the P90s through that.
Yeah.
Nice.
You got an LP
Right.
special?
What?
So do you have an LP special?
Well, it's not the OG. It's
No, but still.
it's a double cut. Yeah, you've seen that. I played
Yeah.
it.
I did. I used a lot of different pickups designing the thing. I have a Casino with P90s, one of the Japanese ones, and that one, I played a lot. And then I voiced it with, a Strat and a Les Paul with humbuckers and stuff. I've gotten a lot of different feedback on that. A lot of people, I'm always, interested to hear which mode people prefer, because a lot of people stay in chiffon and they're like, oh, I would never use the raw silk. It's too much drive. No. But they love the versatility of the chiffon mode. Now, I did voice it darker. Like if you have the knobs at noon, you get a little more of a fat jazzy tone. So it can be a little muddy on humbuckers or something. But what I hope you did was played with the treble knob. And I know with a lot of other amps, people are really afraid to turn that treble knob up. But with this one, because of the range I was going for, you can really crank that treble and it opens right up. Like the mud goes away. One of my favorite settings is to, turn the treble to 3 o'clock or so, maybe a little past 3 o'clock, and then cut the mids to get that big, the classic 60s scooped tone.
Yep.
And I find it really lively in that mode. But if you hang around noon, it is voiced a little darker than most other amps.
Yeah, I think, and maybe that was my reaction because I'm not used to being able to pretty much dime the amp,
Right.
because
few people are.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Everyone shies away from it. So many people I see play with it and they don't turn anything, and they're like, "Yeah, it sounds okay." I'm like, "Well, mess with it." I find that I'll have to show people. So I've kind of given some disclaimers, like, "No, you can turn the treble all the way up, and it'll sound great. It won't hurt your ears."
That would be a great hang tag on it. I mean, honestly, I'm not even joking.
Right,
go for it, dime it.
Go for it, dime it. Yeah, and same with the volume. Like I do find that it was hard to choose pots because, that's not something I thought I would have a hard time with, but the different available pots have such a different, logarithmic range. And I liked the turn of the CTS pots that I ended up using. Like I liked the feel of them a lot. And, but I did find that you do have to get it a little past noon for it to really wake up. As far as when you want that extra drive on it.
Yeah. It has a lot of dynamic range within that amp. Like it's almost like a couple of amps in one amp to a certain degree, depending on where your settings are, what kind of volume you're at. Mm-hmm. So I could definitely see that. And I was actually surprised because when I did see those demos, usually those guys are playing stuff that's got a little bit more bite to it, and they both, like, right out of the gate were in the chiffon mode, and I think really enjoying it, and it sounded fantastic, especially with a bunch of delay and reverb all over it. I mean, it's quite nice.
Yeah, I think especially mic'd.
Oh, yeah.
That in a studio setting is much more control. Even in a live setting, it's much more controlled, I guess, or maybe a flat EQ kind of thing, if you will.
That's where the raw comes in, man.
And that's what I was you mentioned before, being able to use it in a live setting or something. And my idea behind the raw silk mode, which bypasses the tone stack entirely, was I wanted to capture the tone of whatever pedals you're using. So by bypassing the amp EQ entirely, you can use your board to dial in any other tones of the pedals you want. Or like if you have one thing that I hadn't really thought of, but Ryan from Demos in the Dark kind of pointed out to me, was it really shines with like an amp in the box kind of thing. Like if you have any of those pedals that are trying to reproduce the old amps,
or a great preamp pedal in front of it.
Yeah, or a great preamp pedal, you can just throw it into raw silk mode, turn the volume back a bit. Because even though there's a lot of drive in that mode, you can really turn the volume back and it cleans up super well. And you just get whatever EQ that you set on your board.
That is one of the things that I appreciated, because while I still got the drive, with the volume up, depending on how hard
Dynamics.
depending on how hard you're picking, is like it was really responsive. And
Yeah.
those are the two things that I was most excited about when we started talking about the amp, when I found out about you. Number one, that it wasn't a Fender, it wasn't a Vox, it wasn't a Marshall.
Right.
And number two, well, because I was going to be able to get like potentially I don't want to say a completely neutral sound, because that doesn't have any character, but it wasn't no matter what I do, this is going to sound like a Fender.
It's
no matter
not just a
Right.
clone.
Exactly,
That's already been done.
exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
So those two things, and then the dynamic, because the kind of music that I play, that's when I get the most excited, when I can like.
And that's when you got excited about the raw. You switch that, and you're like, whoa.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got that. And one of my favorite guitarists ever was Billy Zoom from X. And one of the reasons that I like his playing is because of his dynamic. Is like he's just riding the amp, right? But he depending on how hard he's playing, he's got full on overdrive distortion, or he's backed off and he's got bite. And that's one of the things that I like to do in my band, is like I want the bite available, and I also want like, give me a power chord with all its fury.
Right. I do that often. My playing style is super dynamic. I'll pick really quietly, and then I'll hit it way harder than I should. And one of the things that brings out dynamics in an amplifier is the noise floor. So if you don't have a lot of noise in the background, you can really hear those subtle, quiet notes, and it lets the loud notes come through just explosively. A lot of care was taken in the low noise design of the amp. Because it's a single-ended design, they're inherently way noisier because they don't cancel harmonics like a push-pull design does. So I already knew hum and hiss might be an issue. So I took a lot of care in the layout of the design, just the turret board layout and the wire routing, and then also the grounding was a big one. Most amp makers, they ground everything through the chassis. I'm sure there's some that don't, but most of them ground everything through the chassis. Any return path in the signal, like the input jack, output jack, every ground path for the filter caps and stuff like that, they just go to the closest chassis spot they can, and it creates a lot of issues that people don't often address. But what I did is I isolated every single jack. The chassis only acts as a shield. It's only connected to the ground in one spot. And I use a big copper bus bar and star everything to its appropriate stage. And it really helped reduce the hum naturally. Like, I didn't do any over filtering on it. Like, it's filtered like basically with vintage values, like really low value power filter caps.
Rob?
What?
I'm pointing at Jared. Jared, you're not here. Jared.
This is spooky, Jared.
Holy mackerel.
I'm here, I swear.
Oh, man.
That was good.
That made me
I was kind of curious about the adding reverb into the amplifier.
Yeah.
Was that something that you felt had to be on there, or you thought it would be just a nice add-in?
I added it because I wanted it. I really liked it. I tried it without reverb, and it was really good. And then so basically I kept the reverb in after I tried a one tube reverb at first, and it was just really subtle, and I didn't really like it. So I just went with a full blown reverb, which is heavily based on the old Fender designs. But I used my own values. It lets more bass through, and I use a different reverb tank than most people do to get that. People have told me it sounds more like a plate reverb than a spring reverb.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, it's definitely a unique sounding reverb. And the one thing I noticed is when you have it in, let's just say you put it on at 12 o'clock. On both the Dwell and Mix.
Dwell and Mix. That was really cool.
It really adds a little something to the flavor of the amp.
Yeah.
as a, you know, a little bit even, you know, maybe a little more clipping, a little more, I don't know how to exactly to describe it, but it's different than a reverb that, you know, you would typically have like on a Fender or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a lot of control with it. So I hate to keep getting over technical with it, but like, the dwell control is basically like the pre for the reverb. So it dictates how much signal hits the springs. So how much verb you ultimately want to see on the springs, how much the springs will vibrate when they're slapped with a signal. And then the mix is how much of that spring tone you want back in, mixed in with the dry signal. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Typically on a Fender or something with the one knob reverb, dwell would be dimed all the time. You wouldn't be able to turn it down unless you had like a standalone unit or something. But
it's kind of the same reason I don't like a one knob phaser pedal.
Right. It just gets, it's too much. You turn it up a little bit and it just, boom, there it is. Yeah.
I really enjoyed having both those knobs to mix the sound and get different tones out of it. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like to leave the dwell kind of like at noon or a little lower, and then I like to boost the mix knob a lot, and you get a really washy tone, but it doesn't overdo it, you know.
And that's a real tank, right? That's not digital.
Oh no, that's a real tank. Yeah, we use a 3-spring tank, so it's a really heavy, dense reverb tone. And you were right. You mentioned the it getting a little more drive or something when you introduce it too, because it does interact with the dry signal to where when the mix knob is turned up, you get a little more gain overall.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something I noticed. And I have, not too long ago, I picked up a Dr. Z reverb head, tube reverb head, and, it's got the same kind of controls because I've always loved the Fender tube reverb heads. Mm-hmm. And again, they have the dwell and the mix and a tone control on it. And it's even more so on the amp that you sent us. I mean, I think you get a little kind of, it's a little bit different. Like I said, it's a different sounding reverb to what my ear normally would hear.
Right.
All right. Tanya's chomping at the bit here. What? You got a question?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious. I know that you've done the single-ended KT66. Have you considered doing, something with a double KT66 with a kind of push-pull mode?
The push-pull or parallel single-ended. I haven't decided yet. I'm still playing with circuits because I know a lot of people want, just a little extra wattage and power out of it. So I absolutely am going to do one. I'm just not sure. Probably both eventually. But the next one will probably be a push-pull double KT66. But the timeline on that, hopefully by the end of the year, but probably next year.
Nice.
That's very cool. And so that would probably be more wattage and more all the
power. I have some really cool ideas for it as far as like a really unique master volume, because I would love to do like a 35 watt amp or something, but still be able to get that power, because I really love the power tube drive out of the KT66. Mm-hmm. So being able to get it at a lower volume where you can play it in a studio or, a small venue without blowing everyone's head off, that would be cool. So I'm working on some stuff.
Cool. Excellent. Well, we can't wait to hear more about this. I have one question for Rob right now, which is, all right, Rob, after everybody hears this, they're going to be like, well, I want a KT66 on my amp. And, we talked about tube rolling in the past and, hey, if you put this one in, what happens? And if you match all this stuff, right, that can all be detrimental to your amp or can be awesome. Advise right now, Doctor.
Don't do it on your own. Take it to your local tech. They will know your amp design and what has to be changed, what has to be tweaked, bias, or cathode resistor, whatever, to make it work if it's possible. And they'll advise you if it's going to get you where you want to go. Okay. Or if you're just better off to, say, buy a Silktone amp instead.
There you go. Now,
I like that answer.
Yeah,
I bet you do.
I'll give you my address for the check later.
Right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. Like, say I'm the guy who's going to like, well, I'm going to try. I want to do that. And is that something that is ready? Like, can anybody just plug that? That's what I didn't think.
No,
Right?
in most circuits, no.
You can go down. Like typically, if it's designed for a KT66, it will usually handle a EL30. Well, it might not be wired right for that,
Exactly.
but a 6L6, no problem. 6L6, no problem. 6V6, no problem.
You can't go up though.
It pulls, they pull less heater current and all that, but you can't go up because it pulls so much more heater current.
Is pin 5 wired hot in a KT66?
Pin 5 is...
I'm sorry, 5 or 6? 6, sorry, 6.
6 is... No, I use that as a
okay,
that's a dead pin, yeah.
Cool.
And pin 1 is also dead. It's internally connected to
ground.
Connected to ground, yeah.
Cool.
Tony, that
those
pin,
are
the pin 5 comment was pretty rookie. I don't know if we should keep him on the show.
Pin 5, pin 6, whatever it takes.
I was like 5, 6, yeah.
I have... In my head, I'm trying to remember what pins go to what. I think pin 5 is the screen or the grid. I don't know.
That's the grid.
But yeah.
The grid.
But yeah, that's why I asked that question because I'm not well enough versed in the KT66 and some of these tubes, certain pins are wired hot or not versus others, and I get that at least a couple times a month somebody calls says, hey, I read on a forum I could put this oddball tube in my amp, and I was like, well, you could if they didn't use that unused pin.
Right, exactly. That's on the Silktone amp. I did want to be able to switch different tubes, so it can handle a 6V6. It'll just reduce it to 5 or 6 watts, no problem. So and the 6V6 is actually biased. Like the sweet spot is it shares it with the KT66, so that's a really good match.
I was going to say pause and back up on that. So in your Silktone amp, you can throw in a 6V6, no problem for a different sound.
Absolutely, it would drop it to 5 or 6 watts, and you get that 6V6 character. So very, very champy. You'd have a lot more headroom than usual because it is, the transformer is really beefy for a 6V6. So yeah, you could get more clean headroom out of it. It can also handle 6L6, no problem. Not a perfect bias, but it's really close. It sounds really good. And it can do an EL34 in the new, if you bought one after today, before the original Transformers couldn't quite do it.
Todd, break it out of the box. We're going to plug in an EL34 and see what happens.
Awesome.
That's an early one. That one might not be able to do it.
Whoops.
Yeah.
But it is wired for it. It would handle it no problem because I grounded pin 1 on it, so you would just have a grounded, the second grid or whatever it was.
Yeah. Second or third grid. That's what I'd go
Right.
with.
Yeah.
So look, in summary, we have something where Rob, who has seen thousands of amplifiers,
Millions.
Like 12.
yes, 12,000 amps, who really hasn't had a whole lot of experience with the KT66. And because that is at the heart of this amp, you're looking at something a little different.
Extremely unique.
Yeah. So
I'd like to emphasize again that like the Blues Breaker stuff, Hendrix used them. He had he used the Marshalls with KT66s. I read somewhere that Stevie Ray Vaughan installed them in his Fenders and stuff. Not to name drop all these tone gods and everything, but Angus Young and Tony Iommi and all them. It's all the early stuff. Is all the early Marshall stuff is KT66s.
Interesting. Well, this has been mighty educational and fun.
Yes.
And maybe not necessarily in that order. We really appreciate you sharing all this with us, Charles, and for making an amp that maybe a lot of people haven't really heard the characteristics of out there, including myself and Tony and Rob. So thank you for that.
Yeah, right on.
Silktone Amps, everybody. And speaking of that, of everybody, Jared?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the fun part of the show that we're all looking forward to every podcast.
Not all.
Let's head on down to Nashville, Tennessee, and play a little game of...
Okay, all right. Okay. He's not going to know what to do. Now he threw him off his thing. He can't go off script.
Jared
Would
can handle
you
it.
Perfect. Okay, Tony, stop. Jared, you have the floor, my friend.
Let's start over. Let's head on down to Nashville and play a little game of Would You Rather?
All right. Well done.
This week's Would You Rather is from our good old buddy patron, Bruce Bacon. I had some bacon on a sandwich right before the show.
I believe it.
Well, we all get on a ride at Cedar Point. And it was just...
That's a very specific place. What's a Cedar Point?
Let's explain it to our guest. We may know what that is.
Cedar Point is one of the world's premier roller coaster parks in Sandusky, Ohio.
That is true.
And us 5 people here that are on this podcast right now, we go to Cedar Point, we get on an old ride. We see a ride that says Disaster Transport.
Uh-oh.
And we get on that ride, and while we're on the ride, it gets struck by lightning, and we get zapped in time.
What? It's a roller coaster time machine?
It is. It zaps us back to 1971.
Ah, yes.
71.
That's a great year.
Roller coaster stops, and Keith's studio is on your right,
Keith Richards?
and Jimmy Page's studio is on the left.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
And this is what year? About
1971.
So this is a
71.
Sticky Fingers album and Zep 4.
Zep 4. Yep.
Oh, wow. Those are monster albums.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
what's the question?
All the gear from those albums are in each room. Which room are you going to go in and help yourself?
Now, will the time machine allow us to bring back that gear?
No, it will not.
Okay,
You only have a certain amount of time to go in and play the gear.
Just really briefly, I mean, we don't have to go extensively into this, but in Keith's room,
In Keith's room, there would be a ton of
it's kind of
stuff.
everything.
Yeah, Tele
All the
Custom, Dan Armstrong, Plexi guitars,
Gibson Deluxe.
maybe,
All the goods.
Custom, not
Les
Gibson
Paul,
Deluxe, sorry.
Les Paul
Custom Les Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of stuff. And I think Pagey would have had probably the double neck,
Yep.
Yep.
as well as probably some late
Couple of 59s.
59s.
Yeah.
Yeah, including his number one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, that's a great question, Bruce Bacon. Tanya Bolonsky, what are you doing?
Well, I think I'm going to go to the right and go into Keith's room because there's just such a variety of stuff there. Plus, I would probably get an instant contact buzz from just touching the guitar.
Right.
Let's be honest. In either room.
I think Pagey was a little more serious about stuff, but yeah, I think he stood a better chance just from touching the strings on one of Keith's guitars.
Aside from that.
So, but I think I just like the variety of the instruments, and he had dozens of guitars.
Yeah.
That I think would be very very fun to play.
Interesting.
And amps to play through.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Keith.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to Charles.
I'd probably go Page. Zeppelin 4, he has his 59s. The number one had the Peter Green thing, right? It had the mod with the phase switch. So I love that tone, overdriven. So I'd probably go right to that guitar. And I'm pretty sure he had, fuzz faces or tone benders. So I do that. And what's the delay he's famous for on that album? It's the big tape unit, right?
Yeah, it's the one made in
Echoplex.
The Echo, yeah,
Echoplex.
the Echoplex.
Yeah.
Yep.
the one made in Ohio.
You do me those three things into any amps he has, and I'll be happy. So.
All right. Rob?
Got to go with Keith. Same thing as Tony said, the variety and.
I'm not alone on Tony Island this week. I'm so happy.
5 people. You had a good chance not to be.
Yeah, that's true. How about you, Jared?
Yeah,
This isn't even a.
it's kind of it's not. Yeah, I mean.
Just say it,
Yeah, Paige is like your guitar idol,
It's
and he's
okay.
playing a Gibson, which is your favorite guitar. So it's like,
I walk in the Page.
yeah,
I want to play that stuff. I want to get my hands on that EDS 1275, which is a double neck.
yeah.
So
Yep.
that's a very rare guitar. So the
Well,
model he had, anyway. Yeah.
So you're gonna be the tiebreaker here, Todd.
Yeah, well, I really love Keith's playing. I really do. I'm probably more of a fan of the Stones than I am of Zeppelin.
But
But the opportunity to walk in, grab number 1, goose the Marshall, and just go. Because it's anytime you have a guitar that is like iconic. At this point, we don't necessarily have an iconic the guitar from Keith. He's got a stable of them, right? But this one, I like the idea of getting the hands on. It's why, like, when we go to the rock and roll museums, like when I see Joe Strummer's guitars, like, guy only had like 2 guitars in his entire career, and you're looking at it. It's like that's a Rush. That's incredible.
That's a different band.
It is. Both Rush and the Clash, but you know what I mean. So when you see the thing that's directly associated with a ton of input and influence and everything, it's like you gotta go for that. That's what I'm going for.
Okay.
No offense, Keith.
we lose Tony.
Man, that's
All
I'm
right.
used to it. So
All right, that was a really great.
yeah,
Would you rather?
made you think.
Very fun.
Yeah.
I love the idea of any kind of crazy time machine. Tony Baloney, we got to
Yes.
thank a few people, and then we
We
got to say
do.
goodbye to Charles after that.
That sounds, well, we don't want to, it doesn't sound great to say goodbye to Charles.
Finally.
Yes, we do. Yes, indeed. I can't wait to say goodbye to Charles. No. At this point of the show, Todd, we like to thank a very special group of people. These are our executive producers.
That's right.
And you might be wondering what an executive producer is, and more importantly, how can I, as a listener, become an executive producer?
Yeah.
Quite simple. Go over to patreon.com/the guitar knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate, become a patron, a sponsor of this very podcast. There's a great bevy of thank you gifts, including things like T-shirts and barefoot buttons and stickers and picks and keychains. Did you say keychains? Yes, you did. Keychains. We've got those.
People got them. There's all kinds of stuff in there.
But as an executive producer, you get all that great stuff. And there's one more thing, Jared. What would that be?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
Your name read on the thing being this podcast. So I wanted to say a very special thanks to these executive producers. Tom Barazin.
Whoa,
That was a good one.
that was.
Martin Cliff. John Daly. Chris Kearney. Darren Gregory. Doug Christ. Michael Van Zant. Ken Sayers. Brian Robison, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Johnny Knowles, Anthony Lathrop, John Anglin, Tyler Bray, Brad Partridge, Chris Heidel, John Esterly, Doug Gann, Justin Jones, Brett Alexander, James White, Matt Hart, Bill Gola Guitars, Richard Kendall, Tig Harmon, John Jackson, Jason Roush, David Rando, Douglas King, Gary Cooper, Lumberjack Components. I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. Mark Garton, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D, and Trevor Gunberg. Thank you, executive producers.
Gundberg. Gunberg. He even said you got it right the first time. Now you mess it up. Nice one, Tony.
What did I say? Gundeberg?
Yes.
I'm speaking German
Yes,
right
that
now.
is German.
Sorry.
Gunberg is not.
Gunberg is not. But wait, Todd.
Yes.
You interrupted me.
I'm so sorry.
Because there's an extra special group of executive producers. We call them our Grand Poobahs. And I wanted to let you know that this week, Todd,
Yes.
I'm talking specifically to you,
I'm listening.
we have a new Grand Poobah.
It is so exciting. I love getting that news.
So these Grand Poobahs, they live on the penthouse suite.
Yes.
They wear fezzes while they listen to the podcast. They have individual hot tubs in which they soak themselves while listening to the podcast.
And
They have
all the
room-
LED lights are orange in those, by
And
the
they
way.
have room service that delivers them very specific cocktails
Yes.
while listening to the podcast.
Get on with it, Tony.
So welcome aboard, Mel Sanders.
Right on.
Welcome to the group of Grand Poobahs. How about Johnny Morales?
Also a newbie.
Yes, John Williams. LSJ Music Company. James Pennington. Tyler Rhines. Tim Novak. Steve Keys. Adam Johnson. Tommy Manasco. Sean S. Cody Fasta. Science of Sound. David Kaminga. Corey Nigro. And Jonathan Jerusik.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to mention that of those, there are several builders in there. I mean,
Yes.
Jonathan Dudzik is building. Tim
Yes.
Novak is building.
Yes.
So Jonathan Dudzik, 12th Hour Devices. Tim Novak. That's me. Tim Nowak. Tim Nowak.
Novaks, yes.
Yeah, Bardic Devices. You got a music shop in there. And I mean, that's just awesome. Thank you guys so very much.
We could not do this without you.
Truly. All right, we need to find out where people can get a hold of all of us clowns. Charles, tell people where they can find your gear.
You can find it at silktone.org or contact me on Instagram or go visit one of my, many dealers that I've been growing the dealer base of from California to New York now. So that'll be
Outstanding. Tony?
Head over to pickguardian.com. Check out what I've got. Some things you can order directly online. By and large, what I do is custom work. So just shoot me an email. Let me know what you need. I will take very good care of you.
Try to call him.
Actually, don't call him, call Rob.
Do you do custom pick guards, Tony?
I do custom pick guards.
Only if you call.
All right. Jared, about yourself.
You really can't get a hold of me anymore.
That is true. That is true. You actually, you can say go to Gibson.com.
Yeah, just look at their products because they're awesome. If you want to get a hold of me about anything about the podcast, just go to the
Go to the
Guitar
Instagram
Knobs
page.
podcast,
Yep.
Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the jokes.
All right. And
That's Rob.
I did it
over
again.
there.
I'm looking over and
This is
Jared's not
awesome.
there. I'm sad. But I'm happy that Rob's there at least. Rob,
Yeah, no offense taken, Todd. I
none.
see.
None given.
Mad Cow Amplification on Instagram, and also have Facebook. And send me an email at info@madcowamplification.com if you have something that's broke or something you want modded or et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And if
you
it
don't
ain't
want to
broke,
respond,
don't fix it.
right?
No, you can still send
Hey,
it.
Yeah. If you don't want a response at all, call him.
Yeah.
I had one more thing
real.
to say. I had one more thing to say about Gibson as well. They did open the new Gibson Garage. If you're down around Nashville, go to it. It's an experience you've never experienced before when it comes to Gibson. So go to Gibson Garage. It's at the Cummins Station building on 10th Avenue.
All right.
It's awesome.
All
Awesome.
right. You're going to have to post pictures of that on your Instagrams there. You're going to have to make a new Instagram, actually.
Yeah.
All right. You can shoot me an email, Todd at theguitarknobs.com, or DM me on Instagram at theguitarknobs. We'd love to hear what you have to say. We'd love for you to support us if you can. And if you can't, just say hi and give us a shout anyways. It's okay. All right, we had a great episode. Hope everybody felt like it too. Charles, we need to say thank you for stopping by and for sending on this awesome Silktone amp for us to try.
You're welcome, and thank you. I love talking about it, so that was fun.
Cool. Right on. We'd like to wish everybody a great guitar week. Not a happy guitar. I mean, happy too, but have a great guitar week. And subscribe!
Yeah.
It's less hot in here.
It's less stinky.
Chafe.
Tony's had a day. He came in. He came in all lit up.
Guardian.
Well, anyways, we've just crossed into territory that is meaningless to me.
I thought it was Chafe.
Oh yeah.
I'm exhausted from Tony's crazy attitude tonight.
It's something.
For God's sakes, pick a room.
Rob Chafe, you're really wound up. Charles, we're gonna stop this
Tomfoolery.
here. I think the first time you came in, I said Rob Chafe.
Yeah, probably.
I'm pretty sure I did. Tony is really on one. We need to I was just gonna say we need to do this in your backyard where we're drinking some other drinks.
Can we just start from the top?
Why?
Good old Rob Chafe.
We really should do live video of this.
I know we should not.
I'm all for it.
He's sweating. He's sweaty. He's so like his face like right around, mostly around like the mouth under the nose. It's just like that beady, sweaty guy sweat.
Chafe rubs you wrong.
Anyhow, we've got okay. That's honestly.
I was just thinking the other day that someone, like one of the big guys, Gibson, not Gibson, I guess Fender or Marshall or somebody needs to. Was that a toilet?
That's Jared.
Oh, that's Jared.
Oh,
That is
sorry.
not me.
Not me.
That's,
Sorry.
Tony, you're chomping at the bit. You are on one tonight. What is going on?
Start it over, Todd.
Oh, all right.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.